Welcome to Hope in the Halls, Christian Voices from Washington, D.C., sponsored by Hope to the Hill, also sponsored by Can We Pray, with your hosts Nathan and Amber Kistler. Learn more about Hope to the Hill at www.hopetothehill.com.
Well, welcome back, everybody. Episode 2. Amber and I are sitting in Nashville, and we had an event. Actually, her sister's getting married.
Yeah.
And by the time you hear this, she may have already be married. Well, we had a bridal shower. It was really beautiful for her last night. And so we are in Nashville, and we'll be traveling for the next week. So you will be hearing some of these episodes from us being on the go, on the road. And so you've recorded records in hotel rooms, right? I mean,
New Orleans? Yeah, we recorded a whole, actually it wasn't an album, but we did a whole song in a hotel room because we needed it to be out very quickly, and we were not going to be home anytime soon, so we improvised. We've recorded a song in a hotel room. We've recorded in our bathroom at home. You would be amazed at some of the places that we have recorded at.
Yeah, and maybe just most of the people that listen to this probably already know, but just in case they don't, you are a Dove Award-winning and I, maybe if y'all maybe a Grammy nomination as well. Grammy nominated artist, your family, the Naylands, and your grandfather Rex, who I never got to meet. He passed away before we met. Was kind of the grandfather of Christian music with Bill Gaither, and so you have a rich heritage with your family in Christian music. And I am, as I said in the first episode, I am Amber's biggest hype man because she is my favorite singer. And it's been just a joy to get to listen to her sing with her family all these years. But so a lot of history there, musically speaking, for you and your family. And it's actually kind of rolled over into the work we do in D.C. because there's so many members of Congress that grew up listening to gospel music, maybe not grew up listening, but they've been listening to your mom because your mom is young, but they've been listening to your mom and your family for many years. And so often we go into an office and have members that recognize you and the music and so forth. And
there are some of them that grew up watching the Gaither videos and that are big Gaither fans.
You were on the Gaither Kids videos too.
I was, yes. Gaither Homecoming Kids is what we call them. And I started when I was 4 years old. In fact, Gloria Gaither sent me a text message yesterday of a video clip of that little 4-year-old Amber on one of the Homecoming Kids videos.
You were cute too.
And the song was called Beautiful Feet. Because the song is about beautiful are the feet who bring the good news.
I don't think I've seen that one yet.
Yeah,
you'll have to show it to me.
I'll have to show that to you.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago. But yes, it has rolled over into our work in D.C. And then I've been able to sing for certain events there. Our family's been able to sing for a few things in D.C.
In the Rotunda?
Yeah, in the Rotunda. We've just done a lot of cool things. And, music is one of those things that moves everybody. Everybody tends to love music, and it speaks to them. And even if you're not a believer, there's just something about worship and the songs that praise the Lord that moves people, even if they're not believers. They can respect it and they give reverence to it in places like the Rotunda, where you might be singing It Is Well With My Soul, and you'll see people who are just passing through, they stop and they give reverence to just the holiness of the song and the praise that it's giving to the Lord. And so I'm honored that the Lord would use me in that way, and I'm proud that when we go to D.C. that I'm able to be used in that way. Chaplain Black, no matter what time we go to his Bible studies on Tuesdays, I always will sing if I am there because he just expects it now.
Yes. And he sings as well.
He does sing.
He sang at Family Fest.
He did. He sang like 5 songs during his sermon.
He shot his shot, as they say.
He did.
But he's one of the most incredible. I've always told people, Chaplain Barry Black is the greatest speaker you may not have heard of.
Which is the chaplain of the U.S. Senate, by the way.
Yes. He will go down as the greatest orator of our generation, and maybe the generation prior, because he's in his 70s now. But one of the greatest speakers, has blessed us tremendously. I think one of the great things for us over the years, and COVID kind of stopped that, but the Bible study used to be on Fridays, And it was the end of our week, typically in DC, and it was such an encouragement because so many people in ministry, like us, are on the road on the weekends. And so we would go to that Bible study and get to go on Tuesdays and are so encouraged and blessed by what he has to say.
We loved it.
And if you want to look up Chaplain Black, look up Chaplain Barry Black on YouTube, and you will see he was famous during the government shutdown in 2012 and 13 because his prayers were so amazing on the Senate floor. Every day he was kind of telling the senators what was up, in his prayers, and it was all over the news. So he's an incredible man of God. He spoke at Family Fest this year. That was a neat opportunity for us, kind of where two worlds were colliding.
Yeah, they kind of just came to an impasse,
Yeah, it was really cool, and the people loved him at Family Fest. Bill and Gloria loved him, and we had a
How
great.
could you not?
Oh my gosh, I know.
How could you not?
We had a great time, and music, as I've always said, and I think Amber just said so well, music is transcending beyond party lines and the politics. And the other thing that we have found that is transcending is prayer. Just offering to pray for somebody. I've had one member of Congress ever say he didn't want me to pray for him, and it would shock you if I told you who it was, because it was not a Democrat. And so we've just found that prayer is so transcending, and music has been, like you said, I remember when you were singing in the rotunda just recently, and everybody stopped. It's a hush comes over the space, and it's such a really cool moment to experience. But that actually kind of leads back in. We left off last episode talking about the screening of Sound of Freedom, and I want to talk a little bit more about that because we were really encouraged that Speaker McCarthy started this movie night, and it kind of worked out. God worked all that out because we wanted to screen films. We've been screening films. We've wanted to do more of that over the years. And our prayer, and a year ago, McCarthy wasn't even Speaker of the House yet. He was the minority leader. He made a commitment to just a few of us. There were 6 of us in his office with Kirk Cameron, and he made a commitment that he would help screen some films.
Yeah, he kept his word.
He did, and I felt that was really an incredible thing because most people in Washington don't keep their word.
They don't.
And for him, I respected McCarthy on a general basis, but I have grown in my respect for him as I've gotten to know him better over the last year and a half. And he committed, and he's done it. But I think one of the neat things, he wanted to do this movie night. Whenever we kind of brought this idea, he already had an idea that when he became Speaker, if he became Speaker at the time, that he would want to start a movie night to bring members together across the party lines. And I remember I had a member of Congress that retired this last year, and I asked him, it was in December of last year, we had a little going away party for him, and before the actual party, because there was like 100 people that came to the party, before the party started, about an hour earlier, 7 of us got into a room with him, and we put a chair in the middle, and we sat around him in chairs and just loved on him for about 30 minutes. Shared with him all the things we've loved about him, shared what he's meant to us, what he's meant to this country. Because if I told you who this guy was, you would easily know. You would have seen him on the news many times.
He's the best tour guide giver that you will ever have of the Capitol building.
Amazing.
Ever.
We've spent nights into 4 a.m. and 4:30 in the morning with him. Just love this man tremendously. And so we were just exhorting him, loving on this guy. And I asked him before we left, I said, Congressman, what is the one thing that changed the most in the 18 years you were here? And he said something that shocked me. He said, we quit having dinner together. And I said, wow. Could you expound on that a little bit? And he said, when I first came here, members of Congress, no matter what was going on the floor, when we finished on the floor of the House or the Senate, we would have a meal together. We had time because we were here. We would, our counterparts across the aisle, we would eat together, and we knew each other, and we loved each other. There was a time when we could have disagreement on the floor, but because we knew each other so well, it was hard to hate one another. And as that shifted, as we've had less time in D.C., because members spend more time in their districts now, and that is important, but we haven't had time to have a meal together anymore. And that is where a lot of the breakdown, I believe, has happened in Congress, where when you don't know somebody, it's easy to hate them. When you don't love them and know them, it's easy to have that hatred in your heart towards them. And there's also a spiritual component with that as well. But on the very surface level, the humanity level, I think that is one of the big reasons why we are in the situation we are in Congress.
But I also think that's spilled over into our society as well, even as families and the family atmosphere. I mean, we all know that if Satan is going to destroy our country, he's going to start with our families by separating them. And families have stopped having meals together. They've stopped having those weekly dinners. And there's just something special about it when everybody's going their separate ways and they're so busy. And you think about the parallels of that, just like members of Congress, they're so busy, they're doing all these things, they're voting on our laws in the country. And the family atmosphere is every family member is doing their own separate thing, but they all forget about each other. And if we don't have those sit-down dinners where we have those meals, there's something about sharing a meal with someone where you could just sit down and you drop all weapons. And, members of Congress, they can just kind of be humans for just a small few minutes to have a meal and to just have a conversation that's not about politics. It may just be about their life. And I think our families are struggling because of the same reason, that we're not just sitting down having meals and just talking about life and telling each other what our days were like anymore. That just does not happen the way it used to. I grew up having those meals. Yeah. I grew up having the conversations where we sat down as a family and we talked about what our days looked like and what our weeks looked like. Now, of course, I was young. I didn't have so much experience to give at the dinner table talking about my life experience. But even in high school, I would talk about my sports. I would talk about what games we had coming up, what we did in basketball practice, or what I did in school that day. And my parents were very big on that and having meals. Your parents are very big on having meals together, even still. Yeah. It's just our families have been very good at continuing that, but there's a lot of families who have just lost that as a society we have lost that, and members of Congress have lost that. And I wanted to bring that up because Nathan, you took a certain picture with a certain someone that you had prayed with, and I'm going to let you reveal who that was because it's not a secret. You posted the photo on Hope to the Hill's Facebook page, and which, by the way, if you haven't followed Hope to the Hill on social media, please do so. We have a Facebook page, we have an Instagram, and then you can go to the website, look up more information at hopetothehill.com. But that's where we really put out a lot of content about what we're doing and where we're at, and you're going to see a lot of the happenings that Hope to the Hill does. But you posted a photo a few years ago, and it got a lot of backlash. And it was all about this member that you had came in contact with, and you prayed for them. And we thought for sure when you posted that photo, people would just be eluded at the fact that you got to pray with this certain member of Congress. And it happened to be Alexandria Cortez, AOC, as the people call her. And she is the youngest member of Congress.
Well, she was.
She was at that moment.
At that moment, yep.
And so I want you to kind of tell that story and what happened.
Yeah, I think at that point in time, obviously we had been doing ministry, but my heart had not been changed in the sense of how important it is for us as Christians to share and show the love of Jesus Christ with people, even the ones we view as our enemies at times. And we were doing an outreach. We shared some of that, I think, in episode 1 about how we do these outreaches 4 times a year. Well, this was actually right before COVID. I think it was in 2019, not too far before COVID. We had a young man with us named Garrett, who was volunteering for outreaches. He came a couple of times from North Carolina. And I remember she had just come into Congress. She'd been there like 2 weeks. And obviously surrounding her was a lot of controversy because she was very outspoken about her opinions and things. And Honestly, if I were being completely frank, and I will be, I had zero intention of wanting to even go to her office. I felt like she was not just untouchable, but unreachable. That God could not reach her at all. That I couldn't, especially that I couldn't, but God couldn't reach her. And so we were doing the outreach. We were giving away, I think we were presenting The Chosen at that point. And so we were going to be, I knew where her office was because outside of her office, it's still this way. She's in a different floor now, but her office back then had thousands and thousands of little Post-it notes outside of the door. And it was every time she had constituents, these young people, they were kids, would come and they would write a note, a thank you note or something on a sticky note, and they would stick it on the wall outside her office. And it was, it had to have been.
It's still that way, by the way.
Yeah, but there were at that point there were probably 10,000 of these. I'm not overstating that either. Tons of them. There's still probably 800-900 of them outside her current office, but it's changed because of COVID. That they just reopened the buildings now, and I knew where her office was. And the young man that morning, he kept saying, "I would love to go and congratulate Ocasio-Cortez on being the youngest member of Congress." He said, "I know I disagree with her politically, spiritually, but I wish I could say that to her." In my mind, I'm going, "Yeah, right. That's never going to happen. Sorry, Garrett." And on top of that, I don't want to go, really. So we're walking through the halls that day, and we're on her floor. We're at another office, and I'm kind of hoping, I literally was going to leave the office we were in and walk back the other way and just act like, just move on. Because I didn't think there was any chance that we would ever, her office would even welcome us into her office. And Garrett, he saw the sticky notes. He goes, "Oh, it's AOC's office. Let's go. I'm so excited." I was like, "Oh, no." Okay. So we walk into the office, and it happened that her chief, I had known from another member in Tennessee that he had come over to her office when she came into Congress. And he was very nice. And so we walked in, and I just said, "Hey, we're stopping by to present this DVD. And to let you know," and I was kind of half-hearted in it. We're gonna want to pray for you guys.
Yeah, you weren't very.
Yeah, not at all
Excited about it.
No, I wasn't. I just wanted to get out of there. And the guy thanked us, and he said, "Thanks, good to see you." I said, "All right, Garrett, let's go." As we're walking out, Garrett says, "I really wish I could have congratulated her on being the youngest member of Congress." And the chief heard him say that, and he said, "Well, hold on, guys, hold on. Come back for a second." So we stand back in the office. He walks into the back of the office, comes back out, and brings her with him. And Garrett's obviously, his eyes, are just, he's like, "What? What's happening?" And I was quite shocked myself. And she said, "Well, hello, what are you guys, what are you here for?" So I said, "Well, we're here to pray with you, and still not very excited about it." And I was so blown away. I'll never forget this. As I was telling her, and even though I was half-heartedly telling her that I wanted to pray for her, I could see tears welling up in her eyes. And she said, I thank you. She said, "This has been the hardest 2 weeks of my life." She said, "We've had to shut down the phone lines here. We've had to be very careful. People have said they wanted to kill me." And she said, I know I'm a bit outspoken, but it's been a really tough couple of weeks." And I said, "Well, first of all, I'm really sorry that that's happened to you." I said, "But I just want you to know we love you, and Jesus loves you, and we'd love to pray for you sometime." And she said, "Well, would you pray for me right now?" I said, "Sure, that would be nice." And she said, "Well, hold on a minute, hold on." She said, "Why don't we step out into the hall, because it's kind of small in here." And she said, "I'll be right back." She only had like 6 staff at that point out of the 12 that she was going to have to hire. She grabbed all of them, brought them into the hall, and we got into a circle, and she had me pray over her entire staff. And that wasn't the last time. I've been able to pray with her a couple of times over the years now. And it's a great reminder of the fact that no matter who you are, no matter what somebody believes, prayer is transcending beyond the political and all of those things.
And it shows that they're human.
Yeah, the humanity.
Their humanity. I mean, every time I hear that story, I just see this young girl scared that she has been put in this position of power. Now, granted, she ran for that position of power, but she's still a young girl who probably feels so lonely at times and just has no clue what the void is in her life. And man, I mean, I've always said ever since that happened, I said, can you imagine just the impact that she could have on so many people, so many young girls, if God was to reach her.
Yeah.
If he was able to reach her and change her, the impact that she could have could be greater than anything that we could possibly do.
Oh, yeah.
Because
totally.
she has so many followers and young people who just adore her. And I just feel like, you know, the heart of the king is in the hand of the Lord. I've always remembered that scripture. And I just feel like that it kind of transcends into her because of the power that she does hold with so many young people, that if the Lord could reach her, what she could do, you know, through the just the glory of Christ. And you posted that photo. So it got posted on Facebook.
Yeah, I asked her if I could post a photo that day. Just said we wanted to be able to pray for her. And I don't ever post. You will find, very rarely do I post pictures. And if we do, I ask the members permission if they're okay with that before we do. Because we want to protect them.
It's also rare that we take photos with members because of what we do. We're coming in there and we're praying with them. And a lot of times they will be, you know, very vulnerable with us. And they have confidence in us to keep, you know, their secrets.
Our job is not to take pictures.
Yeah, we're not there to get a photo op, and we tell people that when they come on outreach. Hey, don't be a press, you know, don't do any of that. We don't want photos with members. We're here to love on them, to minister to them, and pray with them. And there's something weird about if you're trying to say, I want to pray with you, but also can I get a photo with you? I'll never forget that we had the greatest advice ever given to us that someone told us, and they said, you know, when you walk into a room and you have to be confident with a member of Congress when you walk in, and because, you know, they know when you walk in that either you're a person who is coming to ask for something, or, you know, you're going to yell at them and they think they're about to get berated with some kind of complaint that is going on from a constituent. And we're not those people. We come in and we say, what can we do for you? We're actually here to pray with you. And that kind of breaks down the barriers because they are so shocked by that. I think some of them that have been there for a while have kind of gotten used to that now from us because they know, because we have broken down those barriers. They go, oh, this is Hope to the Hill. They're here to, usually sometimes we're presenting a gift. And a lot of times we're just asking if there's anything we could pray with them about. So they know that we don't come expecting anything. But that being said, there's something about when you walk into a room and you ask if you can pray with someone, you belittle yourself when you start asking for a photo. You become a fan and you're not equal with them as just a human being. And then they kind of back off and they go, oh, wait a minute. What is that going to be used for?
They can sniff that out, you know, a mile away. And it is very true. Only typically, now there are some members we know so well, if we bring a group of people in, they don't mind because we're so close with them to take a picture with some pastors and things like that. But we have always been very careful. I don't ever ask members for pictures. I was at a dinner with a member recently. He helped me propose to you, actually.
Yeah.
And often we have dinner, and he's a super sweet guy that loves the Lord. But every time we're together, he goes, all right, Pastor, I want to take a picture. You know, we're going to get our picture together. And he takes the picture and he texts it to me.
Right.
I don't, that's my mindset. Like, if a member wants to take a picture, I'll take one, but I will never ask them. It's the same question I had when I was, you know, at Trump's place in Bedminster when we screened Sound of Freedom a few weeks ago. There, I had a lot of people ask, you know, well, why didn't you take any pictures with anybody? And
they were like, why didn't you get a picture with Trump?
And I said, listen, our role in ministry is about the long goal. So it's not about pictures. It's about the long goal, which means we hope whether Trump's the nominee, upcoming or whatever, whoever that is, our goal is to minister to them for years to come. It's not a lot of people step into that, and I watched people all day when I was with Bedminster with the president, with the former president a few weeks ago. Everybody's shooting their shot, and that's a young term, isn't it? Now that the young people say, which
they're
trying
all
to get,
going for it.
Yeah, they're trying to get a picture because they think it's the only time I'm ever going to be around this person, and that is not. We're about ministering to these people for years and years of time. And so,
but it also wasn't the purpose for being there. Either.
Exactly.
I mean, the whole Trump situation, which we've not really talked about that part of the Sound of Freedom screening, but that kind of came up as an opportunity randomly. I mean, 3 days before it happened?
Yeah, I got the call.
You
from
got
Eduardo.
a call, and you were asked to come to Bedminster, New Jersey, to his estate there. And Trump wanted to also do a screening for the Sound of Freedom. He had heard that McCarthy was doing one for Congress through Eduardo, because Eduardo is very close with President Trump. And he said, we're going to do this screening for members of Congress. It's an amazing thing. And he said, well, if I can help, I'd like to do a screening as well at Bedminster, New Jersey. And I'll invite some of my friends and people who haven't seen it. I'll invite the people who... Influencers and things like that. And they did that at the estate. And so that's kind of where that's what we're talking about. That's where that all came from. But the whole purpose was not to be there to even meet him. It was more so about screening the Sound of Freedom for all of these people. And we have said this many times over. If the White House right now were to call and wanted to screen this film, we would go to the White House. But we have not been invited by the White House yet. And so...
we're working on that.
We are working on it. But, it's just... It was one of those things that was kind of controversial, because... people say, oh, well, you're saying that you're bipartisan and that, you don't pick sides, and yet you're going to Trump's estate. We would go to the White House as well. And it's just where we go where we're invited. And that's the same with members of Congress.
Ourselves to,
it's the same
to make that happen.
It's the same thing with members of Congress in their offices. We go where we are invited. And we will never force ourselves on anyone. We will never walk into an office and say, hey, we're here to pray and you should let us pray with you. That's just not how we are. And you posted that photo of AOC, and it got a lot of backlash from a lot of Christians, believe it or not. And that kind of shocked me. People who were like, why are you even giving her the time of day? Why would you go near someone so despicable? And she's just the worst human being. I mean, the amount of comments that are on that photo, and honestly, if you guys wanted to go to Facebook, you could go find that photo and just go through the comments, because they're still there. We didn't take them down. Because for us, it is so important that you look at someone as a human being, because that is how Christ views them. He views them as human beings, as his creations. And he loves her just as much as he loves us. And he is seeking after her right now. I truly believe that he really is seeking after her right now. And I think that her heart is starting to soften a little bit, in my opinion. The fact that she was open to prayer so many times. There are other members who don't even want you to pray for them, but she's okay with it. And so that's a step. Now, how many more steps there are to get to what we're trying to, conquer, we don't know. But that's a step in the right direction. And when we were doing outreach, it was back in March, we had done an outreach. And we had you had your own team, I take a team. We usually split up into 4 or 5 different groups, but, we talk about how we give out The Chosen. And we had been giving out seasons 1, 2, and 3. And I think we were on season 3 this last outreach. And so we had walked into a Democrat's office, and
he ran for president.
He had ran for president, and he had also recently been in the news for a lot of scandals. And we walked into that office, and I did my whole spiel and said, hi, we're with Hope to the Hill. We're here to present the member with a copy of The Chosen's season 3 for their library. And all of a sudden, I look to the right. We're at the front desk, and I could see through the right in the hallway this chair with this man bend back in the chair, like trying to peep up to the front, like, who are these people? And when they did it the second time, and I knew they were listening to the conversation, I could tell it was the member of Congress. And so about the time we were about to walk out, he walks up to the front and he said, I'm sorry, I just wanted to come meet you guys. And I heard you mention The Chosen. And I said, yes, we're here. It's so nice to meet you. We're here to present you with a copy of The Chosen Season 3. He said, I love The Chosen. I watch The Chosen all the time. And I'm not going to lie to you, I was shocked because I'm like, you like The Chosen?
Yeah, I've heard a lot about you on the news.
Yeah, and I was just, it kind of took me back. But I'm like, wow, how easy it is to judge somebody.
Yeah.
It's so easy to judge someone. I don't know where he's at in his spiritual walk, but he did tell us that he goes to church every single Sunday at a church down the street from the Capitol building. He talked about how he was a member there and how he watches The Chosen all the time. It's one of his favorite shows. It's not for me to judge his Christian walk. I really don't know where he's at in his walk with the Lord. I know that he's very open to us coming and talking and praying with him. And there's never a moment that when we're in D.C. that we don't try to reach out to that office. Now, they have never turned us down. It's just that he's been busy as of recently.
Yeah.
But he's very open to it. And so our job is to just nurture that, right? I mean, we know that he's open to that. We know that he loves The Chosen. He's clearly watching a TV show about Jesus's life. And he goes to church faithfully every Sunday because he was talking about what they had done the last Sunday, events that they had coming up the next Sunday. I say all of that to say, there's a lot of people that will say, you can't be a Democrat and be a Christian. And boy, that is a hard line in the sand, in my opinion, to draw. Because while I believe that it is hard to fight for some things as a Democrat, and say that you are a Christian because the Bible is so against a lot of those things. Some of these people, I just don't know that I can fall into that category. I mean, I don't know. It's a controversial subject, but I don't know that you can really because we can't know the heart of people. We have no way of knowing their heart. Only God knows their hearts.
Yeah, well, we had this conversation last night while we were driving, or yesterday afternoon while we were driving. My mentor used to tell me, and I thought it was some of the best advice I had ever had, that as Christians, we are called to live and interact with people, even the people we know or we feel we know the best. We're called to treat them as if we don't know whether they know the Lord or not. And so it changes our perspective in how we interact with people. Because Amber's sitting here next to me. She's my wife of 4.5 years. I feel like I know her so very well, better than anybody else. But only she knows her heart and her relationship with the Lord. And that goes, it's the same for me. And so when we begin to speak on behalf of other people, and I understand, I get that the fruit, the Bible talks about, the fruit of the Spirit, whether, when we don't see that, it's okay to question and maybe judge in that perspective. But our interpretation of the way that we grew up in the South, we've been told that if you're a Republican, you're going to heaven. You're typically a Christian. If you're a Democrat, you're going to hell.
You're not a Christian.
That's what kind of the common consensus has always been. And I have found that there are people who are very passionate about their faith that are on the other side of the aisle. Do I understand how they've gotten to certain places, as far as their thought process on issues like marriage, the abortion, things like that, where we would say those are staunch issues that are very important that the Bible deals with. I am unashamed to talk about those issues, the issue of life, the issue of marriage between a man and a woman. But does that mean that I need to turn around and essentially, for lack of a better term, damn them to hell in that regard? I can't do that. I have to meet them where they are and get to know them person to person and just share Jesus with them like I would anybody else.
Jamie, and you let God do the work.
That's right. The Holy Spirit works. Jamie Parsons always has said this also to me, to add on to that. Every time someone's about to leave this earth, someone who is close to the end of their life, he always makes time to go sit by their bedside and share the gospel. Well, first, ask them about their testimony, even if he's known them for 50 years. I would love to hear your testimony one more time. And if he's not satisfied with the answer, he'll say, hey, I just want to share the gospel with you one more time. And that there's something so special about that to me, because that's what we're called to do with these people. We're called to share the gospel, to live through life, to love on them, and whether it's an Ocasio-Cortez or Donald J. Trump or whoever, because you talk about two people on the far ends of the spectrum, right?
Vastly different.
Doesn't matter who it is. Our role is to share the gospel. I was so disheartened. It broke my heart at the comments that were on that picture of AOC. Pastors that I had known for over 20 years. And again, I love these guys, but I was very disheartened by the things that were said, because they viewed and fell into the trap, as oftentimes I had fallen into this trap, of believing that she is unreachable. Not just untouchable, unreachable. And that is putting God in a box. That's putting God in an impossible position, because it is not impossible. Can you imagine when Saul of Tarsus he's literally chasing Christians down, putting them in jail. He's held the coats of men as they've stoned Stephen to death. Saul is a bad dude, but at the same time, he's religious. He thinks that he's doing something good, right? I mean, you could put a lot of people in that mold today, right? People that are, this is the way I would look at that. There are people that are religious people that say they're religious people, that say that, abortion is okay or certain things like that. But when God meets them, truly meets them where they are, Saul meets God on the road to Damascus and has an encounter with God that is so transformative that he's blinded by it. And then, obviously, most of us know the story. He becomes Paul, and he's written the majority of the New Testament. So if God can do that with a Saul, what can he do with an AOC or a Donald Trump or anybody else when they have a transformative meeting with the Lord? And that only happens when God's people, when God's children, one, pray for these folks, two, initiate relationship with them, love on them, show them the love of Jesus Christ. And that's what we've been called to do. That's what we're doing on a daily basis. And I am proud. I will never apologize. I will never apologize for doing things the way we've done them, because we've seen God do incredible things. That's just one of the many stories.
And you talk about the fruit and how, the Bible talks about you see the fruit. Well, sometimes, though, you could say the opposite. I've seen people who have a head knowledge of Christ and don't have a heart knowledge of Christ. And I have seen where they've been pastors of churches, and from the outside, everything looks great. Yeah. But then years later, they realize, I was never truly saved.
Yeah.
I never truly accepted the Lord and looked at myself as unworthy of the salvation that I have received as a free gift. And so, on one hand, you can say, can you be a Democrat and be a Christian? I don't really know the answer to that. But, also, you could be a pastor and not be a Christian as well. Yeah. Not be, and obviously...
That's a great point.
And maybe the Christian is not the actual term, because Christian is a believer. Yeah. But to be born again. So, if you really want to make that argument, you can make it on both sides, is my point. And so it's easy to look at someone who believes all these outrageous things, right? That is so contradictory to the Bible, and say, there's absolutely no way. But then it's hard to look at someone who is doing all the check marks and they're checking off everything that the Bible says you're supposed to do. And then 20 years later, they look at you and go, I was never truly changed. I was never truly saved. I just knew that this was the list of rules to do. And that proves the point. You don't really know the heart of people. Only God knows the heart. It is our job to love on them. And we cannot go into an office to like an AOC or to the member that was a Democrat who said he loved The Chosen and went to church. If I went there and said, Congressman, you say you go to church and you watch The Chosen, but yet you do all these horrible things. You vote for all these horrible things. And I just berated him with hate. Chances are I'm never going to be able to walk into that office again. Never.
Well, and
He's
that's
going to feel attacked.
That's the assumption that people make generally, Democrats do about Christians, that they're going to just berate them.
Right.
That's what they assume.
You know what that I had heard someone say the other day, it was on, I was listening to another podcast actually, and they said, it's amazing how the liberal side of things are so good at accepting people and loving them, and our side is so good at pushing them out when we are the ones who preach that that's what we do.
Yeah. Well, and I've always said too, Christians were the first cancel culture, right? I mean, and obviously in some cases for good reason. I remember back when I was a kid, in our town, the churches would rally together to try to keep the zoning boards from allowing, gentlemen's clubs to come into town. That's a good reason to, a good thing to do, right? We've now allowed, they're everywhere, but we've also, when we didn't like something that a company did, we would try to cancel them. We would say, we're going to boycott this company. Well, when the other side tries to do it, they try to do it Chick-fil-A or Hobby Lobby, we would say, well, how dare you? They're just standing up for their own principles. And we try to combat that. We are all guilty in the sense of trying to cancel other people. And what I think and what I have seen is when we choose to, in spite of things that people do at times, or businesses or whatever, when we choose to go in and show the love of Jesus to people, you can never go wrong. You can never go wrong. It's impossible, because we may be the only Jesus that people ever see. We may be the only Jesus. And so we want to be, and we're not naive in the fact, trust me, we're not naive in the fact that we don't know, the deep, dark desires of some companies and things like that people are trying to do and what they're trying to push on our culture. We're not naive of those things. But in our circle, in the place that we get to serve, the place we get to share the gospel, we have found it to be so valuable when we're known as givers, when we're known as people who are going to come in and love on these folks in spite of who they are or in spite of how they vote. It has opened up doors of opportunity to share the gospel that we could never have imagined in the beginning. And so these few folks that we've talked about today, some folks on far ends of the spectrum, God has given us opportunity to step into each of their lives. And I think if we get anything from this whole episode today, for me, it's this, that we need to pray for these folks. Maybe it's you take the time to pray over an AOC every single day. And
pick a different member every week or even every day.
And I've told people I spoke at a church recently, Amber and I were at, and I told them, I said, why don't you, whoever that is you see on Fox News, whoever it is you see on television that you dislike the most.
I would encourage people, turn off the news for a little bit.
That's true. But the people that you dislike the most on the news, pray for them. Instead, take time to pray for them. And I think that
you can't have hate in your heart towards someone to want to pray for them. And that is the one thing that I've always said, is that people ask, well, have you seen this on the news lately? Have you seen this? And I always say, no, actually, Nathan and I don't ever watch the news. Now, if it's a big event, like an election or something like that, when January 6th happened, we turned on the news. But Nathan and I, because of what we do in DC, we don't ever watch the news because it's so hard for us to watch the news. Number one, they talk about some of our dearest friends on there. No matter what news station you're watching, they're talking about somebody. And then it can easily sway you to want to hate someone because of they're trying to make money off of a story. And so it's hard for us to go and be kind to someone if we've been taught to hate them. And so we just don't watch the news. So I encourage you, if you're listening and you are a faithful, avid watcher, turn it off for a bit and just pick a member, pray for them every single week. Find a different member and pray for them, because they desperately need your prayers. We desperately need your prayers.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you can't hate. You can't truly minister to someone and share Jesus with someone that you hate. It just can't happen. It's not the way it works. We are called to love people as Jesus loves them, to see them as He sees them. And it even says in the Bible, if you hate someone made in the image of God, you can't hate someone because they're made in His image. Mm-hmm. You can't do that. So take the time to check ourselves and pray for these folks. And I love some of these stories because, one, we've gotten to do it together, but also I love talking about when God does really cool stuff. And I hope that this has encouraged you all this week. Because it's really encouraged us, and it's fun to reminisce on some of these things together and be reminded of God's goodness in the work that we get to do. But thank you guys for hanging with us. We'll be back next week. We can't wait. Thank you.
Thank you so much.